Hello and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, and in this edition of the program we will review some news and reports from the African continent, and we start from Egypt as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Egyptian Expatriates Affairs Badr Abdelati and visiting Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan stressed Egypt and Saudi Arabia's firm support for Somalia's unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity, rejecting any attempts to divide the Arab African country or diminish its sovereignty. The two ministers made remarks during talks held in Cairo on Monday. The two sides affirmed their categorical rejection of any unilateral measures that infringe upon Somalia's sovereignty, especially the Israeli recognition of the so-called Somaliland, stressing that the move is a flagrant violation of principles of international law and UN Charter. The two parties also explored developments in Sudan, emphasizing the significance of coordination within the framework of the quadripartite mechanism with the aim of advancing toward a truce leading to comprehensive ceasefire. And the Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati praised the strong partnership relations between Egypt and Afrcia Bank, or the African Export-Import Bank. Speaking at a meeting with the Afrcia Bank Chief George Ilombi, he expressed aspirations to achieve economic and trade integration among African countries. Details follow.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdelati held talks on Monday with President of the Afrcia Bank George Ilombi in Cairo on Monday. During the meeting, the Foreign Minister commended the bank's role in promoting intra-African trade and activating the African Continental Free Trade Agreement AFCFTA, affirming Egypt's keenness to enhance cooperation with Afrcia Bank in this regard. He also highlighted the possibility of diversifying the existing frameworks of cooperation between Egypt and the bank in the coming period, particularly toward providing support to the private sector and Egyptian and African investors. Abdelati also expressed his aspiration to increase Egypt's investment portfolio with the bank in light of the advantages and incentives currently offered by the Egyptian government for various projects, in addition to Egypt's broad capabilities in logistics, industrial and agricultural fields. He welcomed the announcement of the establishment of the African Trade Center in Cairo, reflecting Egypt's commitment to achieving the shared interest of African countries.
And to shed more light on this meeting, we are delighted to be joined on the phone by Dr. Ayman, Ghoneim, Professor of Economics. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, madam. How do you do?
So, Dr. Ayman, how do you weigh the importance of Afrcia Bank's role in boosting intra-African trade?
Well, actually, Afrcia Bank plays a pivotal role in boosting intra-African trade. Because it addresses Africa's most critical structural challenge, which is the shortage of trade finance and risk mitigation mechanisms. You know that Africa's population now exceeds 1.4 billion people, yet the intra-African trade still accounts for no more than 15% of total African trade. And this is far below the global benchmarks, where in Asia it accounts for more than 60% of the Asian trade, and in Europe around 70%. So the bank has been instrumental actually in closing this gap by mobilizing more than $86 billion in trade and development financing between 2016 and 2022. Its assets and guarantees now exceed $40 billion. Through these liquidity support and guarantees and specialized trade finance programs, the bank was able to enable the African exporters, particularly SMEs actually, to trade confidently across borders, which makes it a cornerstone for the Africa economic integration.
So, sir, how would you comment on ties between Egypt and Afrcia Bank?
Well, actually, the relationship between Egypt and the bank is strategic and is mutually reinforcing because Egypt, Cairo actually hosts the bank's North Africa regional office, which reflects Egypt's geographic and economic importance as a gateway between Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Egypt has also played a key role, and it has been a key platform for the Afrcia backed initiatives, such as the Intra-African Trade Fair, which directly links the African producers, financiers, and buyers. More recently, the cooperation between Egypt and the bank has expanded into more strategic sectors. This includes agreements to establish a Pan-African gold banking platform in Egypt, and this aims at retaining the value within Africa's resource supply chain, and Egypt is playing a pivotal role in this. Now, this partnership actually supports Egypt's ambition to significantly expand its currently limited share of the intra-African trade, and it deepens Egypt's role in the continental value chain integration.
So, sir, Cairo praised the bank role in activating the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. How would you list benefits to African countries from activating the pact?
Well, actually, activating the African Continental Free Trade Area is a structural turning point for African economies. I would call it a game changer because the trade area creates a single market for more than 1.4 billion people, with combined GDP, which is projected to reach $7 trillion by 2035. It offers African producers unprecedented scale for marketing their products. According to the World Bank estimates, the full implementation of this agreement could increase the currently modest intra-African trade exports by around 80%, particularly in manufacturing and value-added sectors, of course. The Afrcia Bank plays a critical role in activating the African Continental Free Trade Area. The Afrcia Bank offers a $10 billion adjustment fund, trade finance facilities, and Pan-African payment and settlement system. And the later, it allows cross-border trade to be settled instantaneously and in local currencies, so reducing dependencies on the major foreign hard currencies and retaining them for other uses. These mechanisms actually, they reduce costs, they attract investment, they support industrialization, and they help the African economies to shift from exporting raw materials to building integrated regional value chains.
So, sir, during the meeting with the new Afrcia Bank Chief, Foreign Minister Abdelati highlighted the possibility of diversifying the existing frameworks of cooperation between Egypt and the bank. How would you elaborate on the impact of diversifying the existing frameworks?
Well, actually, Egypt has been interested in deepening its role as the hub for the African integration and and in deepening the African economic integration, especially that Africa has very strong potential in this regard, and Egypt has been always voicing the South of the voice of the South. It's the need of the South to enhance its financial institutions and to finance its needs either for adjusting with climatic changes or for improving its infrastructure or financing its bilateral trades. That's why diversifying the cooperation with the Afrcia Bank would help in this regard, especially that this bank is specialized in a critical area, which is the bilateral trade between the African countries, that could lead finally to economic integration and helping the industrialization of the African countries.
So, sir, also Foreign Minister Abdel-Aati highlighted providing support to the private sector and Egyptian and African investors. How would you comment on the importance of providing support to private sector to achieve African integration?
Well, supporting the private sector has been a cornerstone in the Egyptian economic policy in the last decade, and we've seen this in many documents that Egypt uses to address the business community, whether locally, regionally, or internationally, including, of course, the policy of state ownership that was launched in 2022. Now, the private sector, whether large corporates or SMEs, is central in the Egyptian economic plans, whether the Egyptian strategy for industrialization or industrial development, or the financing initiatives undertaken either by the Ministry of Finance or the Central Bank of Egypt. Now, cooperating with the African Bank in this regard is important because Egypt now is trying to mobilize all the possible financing details to support its private sector to help achieving its growth targets. We're targeting between 4.5 to 5% growth of GDP this year, and we're targeting 7% growth on the long run.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Professor Ayman Ghoneim, economic expert. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And back to our reports. And the Cabinet Media Center published an infographic on its social media platforms Monday, highlighting Cairo's ranking as the most attractive African city in 2025, according to a report by the magazine Jeune Afrique. Details in the coming report.
Cairo has been named Africa's most attractive city for 2025, rising 7 places from 8th in 2024. The Cabinet Media Center said this came in a report by the French magazine Jeune Afrique. The ranking, highlighted in an infographic shared by the Cabinet Media Center on social media, reflects extensive urban infrastructure and transport developments in Cairo, strengthening its position as a leading investment destination on the continent. Jeune Afrique's 2025 index assessed 30 cities selected from a pool of 41 African cities, combining analysis of foreign direct investment FDI flows with surveys measuring quality of life, infrastructure and access to services. According to the report, Cairo emerged as Africa's most open city to foreign direct investment, attracting around $11.3 billion in FDI between 2019 and 2023. The magazine cited the capital's vast domestic market, export-based potential, and comparatively low labor costs as key factors drawing multinational companies and investors seeking regional expansion. The report also highlighted Cairo's extensive infrastructure upgrades, including expanded road networks, mass transit systems and logistics corridors, alongside major urban development projects that have reshaped the metropolitan area and improved connectivity. Jeune Afrique noted that government-led urban expansion has been central to Cairo's rising attractiveness, particularly the construction of several new cities to absorb population growth. The 2025 ranking reflects a broader shift in African urban competitiveness, with cities increasingly evaluated on economic performance as well as livability, safety, services and infrastructure reliability. Cairo's top position comes amid competition among African capitals to become hubs for investment, trade and talent as urbanization accelerates and demand grows for resilient infrastructure and sustainable growth. While cities like Kigali and Cape Town continue to score highly for governance, cleanliness and safety, Jeune Afrique said Cairo stands out for its economic scale and capacity to absorb investment, making it Africa's most consequential urban market.
And Egypt hosted the 38th meeting of the Board of Directors of the African World Heritage Fund in Cairo. Discussions focused on recent conservation gains and capacity building efforts across the continent. The meeting was opened by Ambassador Amr al-Shirbini, Egypt's Assistant Foreign Minister for Multilateral Affairs and International Security. It was attended by Director of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization's World Heritage Center. And Egypt booked their place in the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 after edging past a resilient Benin side 3-1 in a dramatic round of 16 clash. They will face the winner of the clash between Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso. Details follow.
Mohamed Salah's Egypt defeated Benin 3-1 after extra time to reach the AFCON 2025 quarter-finals. Marwan Atiyah curled in superbly from the edge of the box before Jodel Dessou tapped into level late on. In extra time, Egypt's Yasser Ibrahim nodded home before Mohamed Salah broke clear to wrap the match up. The result sees Egypt reach the last 8, where they will play either Ivory Coast or Burkina Faso. Overall, Egypt and Benin have met 4 times previously. Egypt have won 3 of those matches with 1 draw. Speaking at the post-match press conference on Monday, Egypt's head coach Hossam Hassan praised his players' commitment while expressing sadness over Mohamed Hamdi's injury. He said he was happy with the win and qualification, adding that this is one of the strongest AFCON tournaments in recent years. He said Benin are a respectable team and played very well, stressing that there are no easy teams in Africa.
Well, the viewers, that's all for our program Africa Today. Thank you for watching.